Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like Matt Holliday, should have quit before we started. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
Hi, everyone.
There's the energy. And This week, also, we are joined by returning guest, friend of the show. You may know him as C70 or the host of Meet Me at Mutual or one of his many other podcasts. You may know him as the Blogfather, but we just know him as Daniel. Daniel Shoptaw, thank you so much for being back on the show.
Glad to do it, guys, at least as of right now.
Yeah, we'll see. It always starts at a high point, and our episodes just go downhill from here. So, this week, we are going to, with Daniel, recap the off season, get his thoughts on the news that happened over the last few months. We're going to talk a little bit about the various position player battles that we may see in spring, and we're going to try to dig into the maybe death of Bally Sports.
Yay!
If you have an idea for the opening bit, tweet us at Talk About Birds. Well, Hambone, Gorilla, Daniel, we have to start with a bit of a milestone.
Wow.
This isn't our first time hitting this number, but it is the first time for this iteration of the show. Ben, we've done 50 episodes of this thing. How are you feeling?
I feel older, slower, dumber, worse.
Roughly 50 weeks older.
Yeah, almost exactly.
Almost
50
exactly.
weeks older. Which is not quite a year.
No.
So, we still have 2 weeks to turn this ship around, which I don't think is going to happen. But no, I think I feel, other than all those other things that are going wrong and I'm falling apart and my life is falling apart and my health, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I think we really peaked last episode where you were barely able to talk. So,
hey, you said my mouth loosened up as the show went on.
Yeah, I kind of regretted saying that too. It was one of the weirder things that I've ever.
It was. That ibuprofen just took like 45 minutes to kick in, but hey, we were doing all right.
Yeah, I really don't want to talk about your mouth loosening.
Oh my God. I was in pain.
You're like
a podcast through surgery.
You unhinged your jaw and absorbed some full run of podcast. But yeah, no, I'm I don't know. I started talking before I knew where the joke was going. Daniel, thank you for being here. How's your off season been? It's been a little while since we've had you.
It's been fine. It hasn't been as productive as y'all, so I have not done a show every week. So I got to say that's pretty impressive, especially in the winter, to be able to do that. So kudos to y'all for that. But everything's been good. And here we are, a week and a half basically until games, just about a week till people start showing up and we get all these pictures of guys running around doing jumping jacks on our Twitter feeds. It's the best time of year.
Baseball guys doing baseball activities. Exactly. What more could you ask for? Playing catch, looking at little cards, standing in the outfield. That's really what we want. That's why we're here.
Sorry. I was
just going to say, I can't believe they haven't televised the pitcher fielding performance tournament yet. I don't know why they're not doing that.
Honestly, I would pay extra for that. I think maybe I heard you say this, Daniel, or maybe I saw it on Twitter or something, but I think I'm really looking forward to the full reporter access that should be coming back in full force this year, where you're talking about where like Gould and Woo and everyone are tweeting every single video of people moving their luggage from one place to another and then going and eating breakfast, and you're getting all these candid shots. Like, I am here for all of that. I can't wait for all of the non-content content to be coming through.
Sure. I mean, and interviewed with Katie Wu a couple of weeks ago on the show, and this is, as we pointed out, this is the first real normal spring training we've had in a while, right? I mean, last year the lockout, the year before with kind of coming out of COVID, and then of course 2 years before we had a normal start to it and not so much a normal ending. So just being able to know when people are going to show up and just know that this is, I mean, knock on all sorts of wood, and assuming China doesn't send more balloons or something, everything should go fine. And we'll have a kind of a normal regular year.
Oh, how many balloons do you think it would take to shut down spring training? Probably a lot of balloons.
Yeah, I think it's got or one really low hanging balloon.
That I was just one low hang, like a balloon that's in the batter's eye, because how white that balloon was. If the player, I mean,
they might think it's a ball. Yeah, that would be really confusing.
I think that's the way it looked to Aaron Judge last year. Yes.
Yeah, that's I think we were talking about that a little bit last week, with this being what feels like a return to normalcy, and only increased access, more people on the ground with the candid videos. Really enjoy. Obviously the World Baseball Classic makes it slightly different than a normal spring training, but I think it kind of is going to give us a little bit more of what we actually all want in spring training, is to see these guys who you don't normally get to see play with the big league camp. I'm expecting we'll see more at bats from a guy like Jordan Walker or Mason Winter, all the non-roster invitees, because there will just be more space with so many people. The Cardinals actually have one of the largest contingencies of players participating in the World Baseball Classic. So there's a lot of at bats and innings available for these younger guys.
Yeah, and you have to think that like anyone who has a question mark around their playing time or performance, Tyler O'Neill, Paul DeJong, Lars Nootbaar, Dylan Carlson, like all of those guys are going to be playing almost every day, which means that we get to watch a lot of them, and hopefully we get to see these off-season tweaks, adjustments, visits to Marucci headquarters or whatever kind of take form. And I mean, I love watching Arenado and Goldschmidt, but I don't really need to watch them in spring training games. I'm much more excited to watch them in a real competitive environment. Like we were kind of talking about this before we got on the mic, like the little press conference that they did today on we're recording on Tuesday. The one thing that really, I guess the thing that they communicated extremely clearly is that it is a very high level of competition, and that they want to go in there and beat every other team really, really badly. Like they are not taking this as an expedition. Expedition.
We're gonna Lewis and Clark that shit.
They have to walk to the game from wherever they're at. Yes.
That's why they call it the World Baseball Classic. You have to go from location to location
on foot.
But Waino kept talking about a gold medal, and I don't know, that got me kind of fired up and excited for all that.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, if nothing else, it's 2 games a day, at least on some days, that we get to watch instead of just one. And I look forward to it. I'll ask y'all, because we talked about this a little bit, I think last week on my show. Even with the extra playing time, because it is big for DeYoung and others, how much are you going to put into it? I mean, if Paul DeJong comes out and hits 400 for the spring, do you believe that he's fixed something, or do you think it's 30 at bats and this was kind of against other teams that are probably throwing their double or triple A guys?
Paul DeJong specifically, no, I don't know. I'm very nihilistic about Paul DeJong at this point, and I'm not really going to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hope that he comes into spring and he's crushing it, but will that make me think like, oh, he's back? Let's all systems go for Paul DeJong. No, I don't think so. I guess I'm mostly looking for like health and consistency for a lot of these guys in spring. I want to see Tyler O'Neill out there every day, cranking dongs. I don't know. I guess like I'm less those are the guys that I'm less interested in saying. Paul DeJong specifically, it's a bad example, but like
Right.
I don't know what there is to take from him. I'm more looking at guys like O'Neal, Carlson. Are they there every day? Are they healthy? Can they play the full run that they're expected to?
Yeah, and I think like it's two different sides of the coin. Like, how am I going to feel about it, and how is John Mozeliak and Mike Gersh going to feel about it? I think
Yeah.
those are probably two very different things. But I think that if Paul DeJong comes in and has 30 or 40 at bats and the exit velocity is looking good, I think that's going to be very, very good for Paul or for DeJong's future with Cardinals. Well, this year with the Cardinals, the future only goes so far. I I will say though, like the swing thing, I don't so much care about. Like, I don't think the problem has ever been the swing. A swing is a swing. It's the approach. It's him missing balls down the middle. Pardon me, swinging at pitches outside, especially that low and outs, that slider down and away that gets him. It's like he can remake his swing all he wants. It seems like he just can't see the ball, or it's the analysis paralysis or whatever. But I don't the Paul DeJong removing his leg kick and increasing his bat speed, I don't care. He always had fine bat speed. He always had good power. He's he has either too much of a plan or not a plan at all when he goes up there. I don't know. It's somewhere. It's one or the other, and that's no. He's not going to prove that he has changed that approach to me in 30 at bats. Is I guess is my stamp on that comment.
Yeah, I would argue that I think it seems to me that he always has a plan. I think that's part of the problem, right? Is that we kind of see him as this like overly analytical approach, and that if it doesn't go exactly as planned is where it starts to fall apart.
Overly analytical approach, but unwilling to make changes until this year. We've only seen his OPS plus, his WRC plus, his average, his everything drop since he came up. And now he's like, oh, I'm going to remove a leg kick. And now I'm going to be back to 2017 Paul DeJong. When did he have that? When did he first come up? It's gone from my mind at this point.
You can tell Ben's very passionate about this point because his hands are flailing wildly with this point about his Paul DeJong might have removed. He's. I watched the Muppets the other night. Paul DeJong has removed a leg kick and Ben has added an arm flail.
At least he did it with a year left on his contract, unlike Carpenter, who waited till he got out of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I would love to. I want to buy the hype, but I feel a little burnt with Paul DeJong specifically because it's been every year now. He's coming back. Something's changed. He's got it now, and it kind of looks that way, right? Even last year that happened. It kind of looked that way. Like, great. He seems like a nice guy. Like the Cardinals are better with a good Paul DeJong. We're all on his side. It's just how many times can we have this exact same story happen where we get some article, some blurb about his new approach, his new success. We see it and then it falls apart. And the biggest problem with that is that he doesn't have a like serviceable floor. It's like he's either really, really good or like unplayable on a major league team, at least offensively. And that's really difficult, especially, with the way the Cardinals at least worked last year with like an incredibly top heavy lineup. Like you need something from that position. And it was like a 45% strikeout rate or something like that. And then you paired that with like Yachty and, became an entire black hole at the bottom of the lineup. And, it's like, I'd rather have obviously Edman and then use second base as your cycle for multiple other guys who are at least going to give you a serviceable at bat. But hopefully, I mean, it'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun if Paul DeJong had a good season, kind of a comeback, and he goes off into free agency to be really good for the Cincinnati Reds.
Did we predict that like 6 months ago? I feel like okay. The thing that keeps me up at night about the Cardinals right now, though, is there's a lot of things. I'm very scared just in general. But what if Tommy Edman, who plays like a lunatic, like he steals bases, he plays almost every day, he's switching. I assume he'll mostly be a shortstop this year because of the second base competition. But what about when and if he gets hurt? Like, the Cardinals have a lot of depth in the outfield. There's depth at the corners. There's not really depth at shortstop and catcher right now. At least I don't believe that we've been shown that. And I am worried about I won't say eventuality, but the scenario in which Tommy Edman goes down for 2 months and we are forced into having Paul DeJong be I just can't, I don't know really what I'm trying to say other than I can't believe that this is the only backup plan at a very, very critical position.
Who's the new guy the Cardinals just signed? Like, they did one transaction, right?
Archimedes, forgot his last name.
It's like
Archimedes.
Archimedes, like Gamoa. It's a great name. I love the first name Archimedes. I mean, the backup plan goes to Paul DeJong and then quickly turns into, maybe it gets deep into the season enough. Hopefully, knock on wood, we get an early call up for Mason Wynn, and they say, well, at the very least, he's going to play good defense, which I guess would be valuable. It'd be kind of fun. After that, you're looking at a whole slew of AAA, quad A players.
Because they signed Jose Fermin in the early in the offseason. That's probably the kind of the guy. If it's Edmund getting hurt, then you're in trouble because unless DeJong has adjusted, you're stuck. Now, if you just need a backup shortstop, any of these guys will probably work. But I mean, it's concerning. I don't know that I worry as much. And you mentioned catcher. If Contreras goes down one, that's your big off-season move, and he's down.
Not a good look.
Kind of sucks. But can you get by with Kisner and Herrera? You probably have a shot at it. I don't know. You wouldn't want to try, but you do at least have some options there. Probably. I'd worry less about that than I would about Tommy Edman going out.
Yeah, I am not ready to write off Herrera. I know a lot of people have, and he's fallen off a lot of the prospect list, which I think is just what happens with a prospect list in general, and then with someone who gets called up and doesn't really get a real shot at the majors. It's inevitable that they fall off a prospect list. So I agree, like, catcher is a concern if Contreras gets hurt or is otherwise ineffective. But I'm less worried about that. I agree with Ben. It is a little frightening. It is like the one place, well, really, including catcher, like the two places that you have the least amount of depth are the two of the most important defensive positions. But I think it would be a rotating cast of like all these random dudes that were signed over the last the off season.
But there's like a month of Paul DeJong at bats before those guys come up because that's just the way it go. Not to mention he has a salary that is not, insignificant. So,
well, I mean, ultimately that's why he's still here, right? Like, I mean, like if he was a league minimum or even at a more like, reasonable salary, he's probably gone at this point. But
maybe, except that the only reason I would say not, and I agree, the salary is a big thing, but one, the Cardinals don't like to get rid of stuff unless they have to. They have, but they do like to hang on to things even maybe be longer than they need to. And two, just like I said, the depth that they have. If they had anybody, if Mason Wynn had played at AAA last year,
right,
then I would say, league minimum, he's gone. But now all these factors in there, and you really can't let Paul DeJong go. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, he's still, at least he seems to be still competent defensively. So I guess you think like, well, worst case scenario, we have a big league shortstop defensively, and maybe every once in a while, if he's like truly collapsed, like he does, you say, well, maybe he'll hit a bomb every once in a while, but at least we have someone who can play the position at a major league level competently. And you just hope that, the rest of the team is clicking enough that it just gets buried. But I don't know. We'll see. I guess that'll be a part of the spring.
Yeah.
See how these guys do. If there's anybody at shortstop that sort of steps up.
And that's what I'm talking. It's like Tommy's in the WBC. Like, let's go Team Korea. So we are going to see what that depth looks like and how it performs in a very short sample size, almost immediately. So here we are.
Another thing we're going to start to see with the start of spring is the new Cardinals broadcaster. So, Daniel, we were interested to get your take on Chip Caray and what your sort of expectations for this are.
Well, my take on Chip Caray is, I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I mean, one, I don't know how much a broadcaster makes a difference. A lot of times I'm watching a game with muted for whatever reason anyway. Just things are going on watching it in the background.
Listening to talking about birds, of course. Yeah, we
exactly.
get it.
Yeah, putting that on a loop, just trying to...
Going into the backlog,
right.
Listening to
trying to, But, and I liked Dan. I may not have liked Dan as much as everybody else did, but I do like him. I did like him. I thought he did a good job. And that kind of organizational history is going to be tough to replace. But, just to go, I wonder if I would feel better about it if it hadn't been for this idea that a guy like Aaron Goldsmith, who was a young guy, who's kind of up and comer, maybe a little bit more modern, was in the running. And then you get Chip Caray, which is like, feels like a step back, even from Dan. And he's 10 years older than Dan. He's in a different generation. I'm sure he'll do a fine job. I don't know that it'll be anything extraordinary. We'll see. You hate to hate on him before it happens, but right. I think it is telling that, you look through like Seattle when they thought they were losing Goldsmith, and all these people on Twitter are, happy for him, but hate for him to go. And you look through all the people in Atlanta that Chip Caray, and they're driving the bus to get him. So, the people that are dealing with him more see it. So I don't know. I think we'll see how it goes. I'm not all that excited about it.
Yeah. The thing that's frustrating about the Seattle situation is that they have two. I almost said Chip Caray. They have two announcers that are worth their salt. Dave Sims, I think he's like almost 70. But I think he is a fantastic game caller. I think he's better than Aaron Goldsmith. And Aaron Goldsmith is kind of like the wonderkin who is, quickly rising, starting to get national games and everything. Did you both listen to Chip Caray's interview with Bernie Miklasz on whatever channel that Bernie's on now? I don't live in St. Louis, so I just find it online. But did either of you get a chance?
I didn't listen to it.
No.
He was saying all the right things. He was talking about his dad and his dad's dad and the St. Louis history. And I think something that I don't know how this really affects Chip Caray in 2023, but his granddad did announce for the Cardinals for, I think it was 30 years or something like that, or 25 or quite a long time. So I get, I don't know. What am I trying to say? He sounds like he understands the weight of the chair that he'll be sitting in. He knows how many people are watching, how crazy us Cardinals fans are. And I guess I appreciate the fact that he is acknowledging that, but then he also, in almost the same breath, said, some people are going to like me, some people are going to hate me. I'm just going to do my thing, which to me, that kind of reads as you're going to be who you are. You're unwilling to change.
Yeah.
It's well, maybe feedback is good sometimes. I get feedback at my job and I'm expected to improve. But I don't know, when you're the son of or the grandson of a legend, maybe it applies to you less.
And I think that's, we've talked a lot about the Cardinals being a bit insular and not necessarily going outside the organization. Now they kind of did with, even when they do, Skip Schumacher has spent some time with the Reds, Padres, whatever. Joe McEwing had spent some time with the White Sox, but there's still people that have connection to St. Louis. I would like to think, I may be wrong, but given the ratings, given the baseball craziness of this town, that the Cardinals' job is a good enough job that you don't have to sell it to just people that have a connection to St. Louis. It could have been, anybody would have been, I'm not saying anybody, but, a lot of people would have been willing to come to St. Louis, even if they didn't have that connection. And I get Cardinal fans like to have that history and that stuff. And there's something good to that. I'm not dissing it completely, but, if it was like, okay, this guy over here, or, Chip Caray, because he's a Cardinal, legacy guy, let's put him in here. I don't know that it necessarily had to be the deciding factor.
Yeah, I think it's probably more so that it's the perception of the fan base that we would want someone with Cardinal history, that we would actually like value that. I mean, if you look who the two finalists were, we don't really know anything beyond what happened in that like 48-hour whirlwind, right? But it was Aaron Goldsmith or Chip Caray, and both of them, in all of the reporting, everything was like, Aaron Goldsmith is a St. Louis guy. Chip Caray is a St. Louis legacy. It was
his mom lives in St. Louis or whatever.
Yeah, everything was tied around St. Louis.
And who did they ask first? Joe Buck and Bob Costas.
And right. So I don't know if it's probably just like a feedback loop, right? Where the decision makers at the Cardinals know that St. Louis values that, because they do it all the time, and we've been like coached to value the history of St. Louis Cardinal baseball. It's like it's a self-fulfilling loop, because I do think if they had been like, hey, this guy who's an awesome broadcaster from a team in California, he's AAA, but he's awesome, you're gonna love him, we probably would have had a same reaction, like hooray and also boo, whatever, and it's all that's ultimately going to matter is how he does in the job,
Right.
And I wish like they gave Danny Mac the opportunity to kind of grow up. First off, he grew up a Cardinals fan, but he grew up with the team. I think he took the job over when he was like 25 or 26.
He's 48 now. He's done it for 25 years.
Yeah. So I really liked the idea of somebody coming in, maybe not necessarily that young, but young, and who was going to dig their heels in and be here and announce for a long time. And, we talked about this. Chip Caray, some guys go really, really long. I don't really know what his aspirations are. Maybe he will be here for a really long time, but he is kind of set in his ways. I don't know. There were so many other options, and we went with one of my least favorite.
I feel like they really should have considered like a scrappy podcast that had done like around 46 episodes, 45 episodes at the time. They were pressing up on 50, and it's time to get them out from.
Let's just say that they had a brain aneurysm or something, and they gave us the job. Do you think we would live throughout the year? I think that people would hunt us down and rip us out of our homes if we somehow got that job.
Yeah, I mean, the moment one of us starts screaming like "fuck this," like in the middle of the right, we're
coming into your home every night, two idiots.
Yeah, it would have. Hey Ben, wow, what a home run there from Jordan Walker. Walker, is that a bird or a boy?
Yeah,
it'd be bad. I'd be like, what? I wasn't watching. What happened?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
looking at my phone.
Yeah, I'm tweeting at C70 right now, so I can't pay attention to the game.
Yeah.
You'd be the play-by-play guy though, for sure, right? I think you'd be play-by-play and I'd be color guy. I think that'd be the obvious breakdown.
Because your baseball lineage, your pedigree.
Yeah. No, more that I'm blind and I'd be like, what happened? I didn't see it. So
it's Mike Shannon then. Is that
definitely.
People love him. So
just refer to people by their numbers because you can't pronounce any of their names anymore. I will say I don't know if you saw Aaron Goldsmith's, like, he did an interview a little while after, and unfortunately made me like him even more. He said that the job would have given him more fame and more money, but if his kids ever asked, Dad, why did we have to move in the middle of my school years from Seattle to St. Louis, I'd have to look at my kids and say, because your dad wanted more money and to be more famous, and that didn't sit right with me, and so I turned down the job. And I'm like, ugh, yeah, that's great, Aaron.
I mean,
yeah. But then the kid's like, we could have had more money. What?
Yeah, you could have been more famous and we could have had more money. That sounds great. Yeah.
And like totally just baseball wise, like I don't know how much the team's performance, the team's like trajectory affects the way, but you'd have to imagine he's been there for a while. I think he's been there for 10 years or longer. You'd have to imagine he's been watching this team. Seattle has been bad. Like they dipped for a while, then they signed Cano. They got a little bit better, dipped again, and now they finally have J-Rod. They have a upward trajectory. They're making the playoffs. I wonder if that plays into it at all, if he wants to see it through. But
of all the times to quit the Mariners, now is like the worst time. They're one of the buzziest teams, and they've got like, this should be a really good year for the Mariners.
Yeah.
So it would. And if you're already successful, you're already locked in. Like, I totally get it. I respect the decision. And who knows if he would have been good. He's obviously well liked. We heard a counter opinion written to us from a listener of this show. Like, there's an opinion on either side for everything. Sure. So we've talked probably enough about Chip Caray at this point. I think games are going to start, and we'll know. Wait. But you got more to say.
I wanted to add on to this and try to transition to another topic that you were talking about earlier anyway. And that is, Aaron Goldsmith was working for Root Sports, right? Which is a fairly stable job.
Well,
then you've got Bally Sports here, which may or may not be. And you wonder, and we've talked about this on our show too, you wonder how much that played a role as well. I mean, again, I think the role, the stuff that he's put out where, I've kind of made Seattle my home and you don't want to move for the kids and stuff like that. I think that's most of it, but there's got to be that little bit in your back of the head. It's like, I don't know where this thing is going to be even next year. So let's just stay where I know what's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't blame him for that at all. If I started a new company and, their financials come out or they have an earnings report and it's like, hey guys, I think the company is about to dissolve because we just basically everything that we have done is, or we've just spent a whole bunch of money that we don't have. And by a whole bunch of money, I mean like $9 billion. I think I would probably start, re-updating my resume and start reapplying. So I don't blame him for that at all. There's no way that was a non-factor. I think there's some, that had to be some part of it. Also, like I think I've talked about this. Like if you watch a Seattle broadcast, they do a great job. They are always in the dugout. They have great color commentators. Their sideline reporter is great. The Australian guy whose name isn't coming to mind right now is great. Like they do a great job. They seem like they're having fun. And they have that great third baseline camera that the Cardinals finally stole in the last year. That does those,
I love that
those
camera.
great pans. I'm flailing my arms around again, but it's
good luck.
So I don't know. I get it. But I don't know. We'll see how Chip goes. Yeah. And he's not on social media, so we can't bully him out of the position like we Cardinals fans normally do.
Nailed Jeff Albert. God, get him out of here.
Yeah.
We're gonna dig in a little bit more on the Bally Sports stuff a little bit later. But Daniel, how do you feel? So between Wilson Contreras and everything else that happened in the offseason, if you had to letter grade or grade in whatever scale you'd like to use. How do you feel about the Cardinal offseason overall?
I like how you said Wilson Contreras and other things. Like there were other,
Wilking, and a bunch of guys we couldn't even remember their name like 10 minutes ago.
That's right. Again, if you look at it as what did the Cardinals have to do? They had to get a catcher. They had to improve the catcher spot. They did that, and they did that in a very quality way. They didn't go out and get, a third the third or fourth best option on the market, which is kind of what we would have probably expected for the Cardinals to do a lot of times,
The
right?
Chip Caray of catchers.
Right. I mean, there was a lot of talk about Christian Vasquez, who, fine catcher, but, would that have made as much of a improvement? Probably not. So getting Contreras, even though he was a Cub, he said all the right things when he came in. So
yeah,
we'll forgive him for all that. His past
you can't
life.
pick what team you start with.
Exactly. And so I think that they did that. So that part, if you go by need, they'd get an A. But if you go by, really improving the team, it's hard to say that was a real successful offseason. It was enough to you're not going to start sinking or anything like that, but it's not enough that you don't have to worry about the Brewers. You don't have to. I don't think the Cubs have improved enough that they're going to pay, but you have to keep an eye on the Cubs. You are one injury, the wrong injury away from having problems.
Yeah.
And then you could have gone out and gotten like I said, Rondon or somebody like that to, shore up the front of that pitching staff. I think there are things they could have done. I think there are things that maybe they wanted to do. You all talked about it where John Mozeliak came out and said, we thought we would spend some more money and it just didn't happen. I think there were some things that maybe the market got away from. Maybe, I don't know, who knows why, but the fact is they're a good team. They're still probably not, even though Zips really likes them. I don't think they're the, top 3 team in the whole league. And that means they're going to be playing if they make the playoffs, they're playing that first round again. And we saw how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking back at, it was like MLB.com's preseason prediction run for 2022. And they had like 10 or 12 analysts all make their predictions. And if you looked at the predictions for the NL Central going into 2022, I think it was like 9 or 10 people had predicted the Brewers and the Cardinals, maybe 2 or 3. And we all know how that season ended. And I feel like it's going into 2023, it is flipped with about the same odds on, only now the Cardinals are like obvious favorites. I think the Brewers were the obvious favorites going into 2022, but it only took a couple injuries for the Brewers and some ineffectiveness from a couple players, and they were out of it by September, and obviously it took the Cardinals having 2 of the 3 MVPs, or 2 of the 3 in the top 3 MVP, you know what I'm trying to say. And then also the most insane Albert Pujols resurgence that no one saw. Like, we had a lot of things break really well for the Cardinals, but it wasn't like all of those breaks for the Cardinals were all still also within realms of possibility that people expected, other than the Pujols thing. But like, Goldie MVP caliber, Arenado MVP caliber, we all saw that as a possibility going into the season. So I say all that to say, like, Cardinals obvious favorites, but it's not going to take much for them to not be the favorites anymore. And I think we all know that starts at the rotation, but as we discussed earlier in the episode, like, we're also a middle infield injury away from a couple problems starting to compound as well.
It is. I've been sitting here trying to like think of how to phrase how I'm feeling right now, and I'm gonna take a whack at it. You guys can tell me how stupid I am, but the Cardinals production, or where it's coming from and how it's coming in 2023, to me is this amorphous blob that I can't really grab my fingers on, because there's no way you can reasonably expect the production from Arenado and Goldschmidt, and obviously Pujols, because he no longer exists.
He's been erased.
And
he's actually now happily married to like the princess of the Dominican Republic or something.
His Fangraphs page isn't updating, so I'm pretty sure he's gone. He's just wiped off the face of the earth. I don't know, but like, DH is such a big question mark. Second base, I think, is a question mark. Like, I think people feel really confident about Brendan Donovan coming out of nowhere and putting up a ton of WAR and walking all the time. Like, to me, that does not feel guaranteed. The outfield performance does not feel guaranteed. There's a lot of reasons to expect good things out of the team, but it's like real, like to put any money on it or to really believe it is really hard for me, especially with the wiggliness of the starting rotation. Being
well, it's what happens.
Yeah,
It's what happens when you have a team full of projected around 2 to 3 WAR at every position. It's like, yeah, that's awesome if that's how it goes. But if 2 WAR is roughly league average, you don't have to underperform that much for the team to suddenly be under average at the majority of positions, and then it starts to collapse from there. So
And I think maybe going to what Ben's saying there, it's like, okay, if you were telling me the Cardinals are going to hit 200 home runs as a team this year, or whatever the case may be, there are like 8 different ways they could get to that number, right? Yeah. Tyler O'Neill could have a great year, or he could have an off year, and Dylan Carlson has a great year, or Lars Dubdar is apparently the savior of everything. Wilson Contreras could somehow, hits 20 that way, or there's just so many different ways because there are so many variables. It's the low floor, iffy ceiling type of thing. We know where they're probably going to be. We just don't know exactly how they're going to get there.
Yeah. Which, I mean, to be fair, is kind of fun as a fan base, right? Like, I think we like pretty much every player that's on the team. There's no one that you're like, get this guy out of here, like, oh, like that's the person that we need to replace. But also it's like all of these guys could just be league average, and the team, it just scuttles to 84 wins, and we say, hooray, another winning season. And then, maybe 84 is enough to win the Central, but you're probably not competing very heavily against the Braves, the Phillies, the Mets, the Padres, the Dodgers. Although it is satisfying that at least the Cardinals are almost across the board projected to do better than the Dodgers, which feels insane to me.
Yeah.
I'll take the projection.
And like, are the Phillies really going to be able to do what they did last year again? I know they're
better. They're better now.
I know.
They made, yeah.
But are they?
They were. I mean, we had a lot of fun laughing at the Phillies last year until they, laughed their
waltzed into the World Series.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I think the Phillies had a really good offseason, and but I don't know. I mean, they're not going to have Bryce Harper for half the season, and Kyle Schwarber, like, who knows if he can do that again? And they have a ton of question marks too. But I would have loved Trey Turner. So that's a good get for them.
I was thinking about this while I was, just twiddling my thumbs and skipping through the lawn the other day. I'm comping in my brain.
No. We can't just walk right past that. What did you just say?
Nothing. I'm comping in my brain. I had this click in, and I'm curious to hear what your all thoughts are on this, that Kyle Schwarber and Nolan Gorman are on the same trajectory. I think Gorman, I don't know exactly where I saw Gorman projecting or where he was kind of what player he was going to be taking after. And then I had this click in. I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say. that Gorman is going to be Schwarber. What say you, I guess?
What a setup.
I'm losing it.
The other day, as I was rowboating down a canal, I was thinking about this too.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting comp. I mean, I think we'd be pretty happy with that outcome, right? Overall, if we could get Schwarber on the team. I don't know. I guess I need to think about that more. But if you're saying Gorman will have a 40+ home run season, I'll definitely take that. I guess the like super biased, all our prospects turn out elite side of me is like, oh, come on, he can have a better batting average than that.
I don't think so.
He could be a better defensive player than that.
I don't think so.
I think we'd be pretty happy if he's Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
Well, as I go rolling down my hill thinking about this, yeah, I mean that's not. I mean, I pull up Schwarber from Baseball Reference here, and he's for Baseball Reference War, he was at 2.2, which of course, right? What we're talking about, everybody's at the 2 range, so he wasn't even with 40 something home runs, maybe not as valuable, but I can see that. I mean, I think that's fair, and you're right. It's like Kyle's poll this week. I'm sure y'all saw that about Jordan Walker, right? It's the expectation that you have. If you have a guy that can play for, well, I mean, Schwarber's been in the league since 2015.
Yeah.
So, right now that in itself is a successful major leaguer. So if Gorman can play for 7 or 8 seasons, and put up 2 or 3 WAR each year, that's pretty incredible as well. So, I think you take that and I think it's reasonable to think that he could do that.
Yeah. People's expectations for these kids are just unbelievable.
Yeah,
I think I saw one, this might've been from Kyle too, saying if Jordan Walker becomes JD Martinez, would you be, JD Drew, would you be disappointed? It's like, he was one of the best hitters for a very long time. He was not a Hall of Fame play. Like, if your expectations for Jordan Walker is that he is going to the Hall of Fame, you need to calm down. Like that.
I think the poll framed it as like, would you be disappointed if he was if he matched, if he had a career similar to JD Drew,
right?
And there was a lot of response of random people on Twitter, which is really the most valuable polling audience that there is. People saying that they would be disappointed that it does not match the hype. And there's this huge disconnect between what people expect because sign me up. I think if Jordan Walker could have JD Drew's career, we would be super happy. I do think it's a little like JD Drew specifically with the St. Louis Cardinals has like a weird reputation. So I think there's like a gut reaction on that one. So people, it's a little bit different if you had used someone with a different career total that wasn't specifically JD Drew. I think people might have been a little bit more receptive to like answering correctly on that poll.
Sure.
But it was pretty shocking. I think I saw someone else, it might have been Kyle again, saying like, all right, let's use Matt Holliday instead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you be upset? And JD Drew and Matt Holliday have very similar overall career numbers. And everyone's like, oh no, I'd be super happy if it was Matt Holliday. It's like, yeah, okay. You just don't like JD Drew,
right.
Which whatever, that was like 20 years ago. So I'm not going to relitigate that, but it did get us JD Drew is why we have Adam Wainwright. So I think we should have some respect for JD Drew too.
So to get us back on track a little bit, Daniel, I know you're trying to rate the Cardinals offseason and everything like that. We're happy with Wilson Contreras. Is there anything that you think either the Cardinals should still do like right now before spring training, or any deal that you really wish, maybe it was Rondon that you wish would have happened, or you think the Cardinals needed to shore up before we get into spring training?
Yeah, I mean, I think just because of the strikeout rates and everything, I would have liked to see Rondon, especially because he didn't go for a contract that seemed insane.
Yeah,
it seemed pretty reasonable, right? I mean, in the Cardinals' wheelhouse. But I get it that they've already got 5 starters. They've already got Jason Hill and I went through the roster and try to figure out who's going to who you're going to kick out of the bullpen because of roster, not necessarily because of of options and things of that nature. There's already a lot of arms out there. Now, can you get better? Yeah, but what are you going to do with the other side of that? I don't know. It'd been nice to sign Rondon and trade off somebody, but then again, other than that, I don't know that there's anything out there right now that I would just say they have to do.
Yeah. The Cardinals have this weird, it's not really a problem because they have a lot of quality players like what we're talking about, but I 100% agree. Like, the outfield is crowded, second base is crowded, DH is crowded. The starting rotation reliever mix, the guys that are kind of on the edge, like the Dakota Hudson, Matz, Verhagen. I guess even Hicks is probably part of that conversation. Palante, like, It is. Where do you pull from? And if you do make a trade, are you going to have a Randy Arozarena situation where everybody's, making fun of the Cardinals for trading away Babe Ruth during the playoffs? Yeah, it's kind of a weird. I mean, they need to do player evaluation and make a decision is really what needs to happen. I'm kind of the opinion they can only sit on their hands for so long. I mean, they have the most information. They should make a choice.
Yeah, I think part of the starting pitcher, discussion or consideration was like, all right, let's say we do sign Rodon. It's like, okay, so now we have to go and move Steven Matz out of the rotation. Okay, but Steven Matz was like our signing last year, and everyone was really hyped on him, and he looked good when he was healthy. So we actually want Steven Matz in our rotation. Okay, well then let's move Wainwright out of the rotation. Like there's not really you could do some sort of 6-man thing and say like Flaherty needs some time to develop, but there's no one you actually don't want in the rotation. So signing Rodon would have meant having to also move one of those guys somewhere, or saying we're just gonna bite the bullet and put Matz in the bullpen and say, buddy, you'll be back up when inevitably one of these guys get hurt. And the Cardinals are, as we know, a conservative organization when it comes to all of that. And so they're just like, we'd rather roll the dice. We think Liberatore is still an option. Dakota looked good in the like 1 or 2 starts at the end of the season last year. They're like, why spend 27 million here when we've got 2 million right here in this guy, and we don't like that, but it's consistent with the model. And
The model.
I know it drives us crazy, but it is what they do. So ultimately, Daniel, you're saying F+ on the season, on the off season?
I don't know that I'd go that high. I think I would say it's a B or a C. Just like I said, I mean, if you go out and sign the best at a position, which is what they did, I mean that's good to give you something.
Yeah, I think when Ben and I gave a letter, I said B-. Ben said C. So I think we're all in sort of the same. Like, it's fine. You did well. It's what we all got in high school. It's fine. So I feel like we could just do this for like 4 more hours, but we do need to move on. We want to talk a little bit more about Bally Sports and some things that have happened around the league. But before we do that, I'm going to give Daniel a chance to tell us a little bit about his shows and where anyone who might be listening to this, might be able to kick us off their subscription list and subscribe to his podcast instead. Daniel, why don't you tell us a little bit about your shows?
I mean, there's no limit to the number of podcasts you can listen to. Now you can move mine above theirs. That's fine, but no need to kick them up. I feel like if you're listening to this, you probably know all this junk anyway. But if in case you don't, the podcasts Meet Me at Mutual, you'll find that, and Gateway to Baseball Heaven do Meet Me at Mutual with Alan Medlock usually.
Sometimes.
Although he does high school baseball this time of year, so we've been rotating in the guest hosts. In fact, I've got Kyle coming up on the next one, so that should be something. And then Gateway to Baseball Heaven I do with Tara, where we haven't done it quite as much. We'll do it a little bit more as the season gets going. Both those you can find anywhere you're listening to this. You can find those there as well, most likely. You can find me on Twitter at C70, which is at the links. You can find the blog, which I haven't actually written this year, at cardsconclave.com. And I think that's everything it should be. I mean, I got a Substack, but I don't use it as much either. So, there you go. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Is that enough?
Yeah. No, just plug a few more things, would you please? Surely there's something else you could plug. Check out Daniel's stuff. It's all fantastic. So, and we've had Tara on the show, and she was great.
Tara's awesome.
Yeah. We've had Kyle on the show, which
Very different energy, those two.
Yeah. Very, very different. Well, if you are enjoying the show and you're preparing for the upcoming season, consider joining our Patreon. Support the show. We're now at 50 episodes. We've been doing this every week for almost a full year. We'll see if we make it 2 more weeks to complete the year. But we got a lot of cool stuff coming up in the upcoming season. We're really excited, and we would appreciate your support. You can find it at patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Subscribers at any level get into our Discord server. It's called the Birds Gourd. We're having a great time in there. It's always a great place to chat about Cardinals or whatever. We would love to have you there. Also consider leaving us a review. Someone out there left us another one, but they didn't write anything. But they went in there. They took the 2 minutes.
Hell yeah.
To smash those 5 stars. And I'll tell you what, we appreciate you wherever you are. We see you.
Yeah.
We see you, King.
I mean, we don't really see them, but yeah. Thanks.
I'm gonna find them. I'm gonna find who it was.
Okay.
So thank you, whoever you are, and for anyone else who will take the time to do that, we truly appreciate it. Ben, how about our online social medias? Where can people find us?
Man, you are on fire tonight, my friend. You can follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. You can follow us on Instagram at Talking About Birds. 2 different handles for 2 different socials because we're professionals.
We're good at this.
2 different people.
Yeah. Ooh, see, it was planned. And as always, you can email us questions, thoughts, musings, complaints to talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. We're also on Spotify, and hit up the Patreon, hop in the Birds Gourd. And I'm just gonna pre-plug our WBC content. We are revving up for the WBC. I'm going to fully switch into Team USA mode, and we're going to be covering that actively. So if that interests you or someone you know, tell them, I guess, that we're doing that. Nailed it.
We're so good at this. So the other day I was doing cartwheels in a gymnasium, and I started thinking about.
By the way, actually, I couldn't remember the activity that I was doing. I remembered what it was. I was taking down Christmas lights.
Fair.
Let me check the calendar real quick. You got to it in February. That's a new record for you, though? I think last year you just let them go all the way around, right? They were Valentine's Day lights, and then they were Easter lights.
We have a big Santa Claus, like a 6 foot tall Santa figurine. I mean, he's just a cool guy.
He's a cool dude
wearing Cardinals red. I'm just celebrating life. But it's been snowy here, bro.
Yeah, Molly and I were talking about the other day that Santa Claus is also kind of like an eldritch horror, because he's all seeing and all knowing and can travel, great distances.
You seem to be doing Christmas wrong.
And
go to sleep or Santa will find you.
I think it's the tentacles that really make me uncomfortable with Santa Claus.
Well, he does feed on our sacrifice. We lay out, butter and sugar and chocolate chips. So
it's the only way to appease him.
Okay.
To be fair, I just got my Christmas lights down at the end of January.
Thank you.
But I don't know if y'all seen mine are a bit over the top.
I forgot about. I've seen it on the internet. You go. Well, I had a few strands. I will say that.
So you've been working on it since the end of Christmas. It just took you until February to get them down.
Felt like it for sure.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So anyway, I was doing backstrokes down the Mississippi River the other day, and I heard a news story about the death of Bally Sports. And so we talked about it a little bit, but I actually haven't read too much about this. I know, Ben, you're a little closer to the situation. I wanted to get your take on it and where you see this maybe going.
Yeah, I mean, closer to it is I am not a finance person or a business person. So closer to it in the sense that maybe I've just read about it a little bit more. and trying to wrap my mind around it, because like we talk, it's kind of like the Chip Caray conversation. It's like, these are the kinds of things that affects people like us, like fans, like super, super directly. But essentially, if you have not been paying attention to it, I'm going to try to summate this as well as my idiot brain can do. Essentially, what happened was that a large sale of the regional sports networks happened. That was before the pandemic. It was billions and billions of dollars. Sinclair spent, it was $9.6 billion to Disney. They did not have that money. That was loaned out through some financial wizardry from business people that, honestly, the more I read about it, the more I'm like, should this even be legal? How are they allowed to essentially leverage debt to buy something without being able to prove that they can pay for it? So anyways, they did that. They bought this. The pandemic happened. That kind of screwed everyone over. There was obviously fewer games, so there was less revenue. And that the pandemic kind of accelerated the cord cutting. People are moving away from these regional sports networks. They're defaulting on the 9.6 billion or 10.6 billion or whatever it was. I think after tax, it was closer to 10 and a half. So essentially they spent a bunch of money that they didn't have. When they could have paid off debt, they did stock buybacks instead of paying off debt. And now their revenues are down, which are putting them in a position where they are already filing bankruptcy. And their financial future is unclear, meaning that the Cardinals broadcasting, I think there's 19 or 20 other teams that like WGN is safe. Root Sports, which is like the Rockies in Seattle, yes, is safe. So, some of the independent ones are larger regional ones are safe. But all this means, and again, if you can explain this better, please hit me up on Twitter, because I'm sure I'm screwing some of this up. Means that the Cardinals, to turn it back onto the Cardinals, a huge portion of their revenue comes directly from this. And it means that they're very likely not going to get that payment either this year or next year. And I think we all wonder how that's going to affect payroll, how that's going to affect the sport. And there's kind of two sides of this. There's one side of it that is, regional cable is annoying for the consumer in that you have to have a cable package that is, you're not paying for the cable pack or the channel, right? You're paying for the sports network, which is, I don't know, let's just say 10% of your $70, but you're also paying for like Disney Kids or ABC Family or CNN, like all these other channels that you may or may not care about. And this model is dying, which should accelerate MLB TV moving blackouts. Although, I mean, we all know people who are not technology I know people who couldn't get MLB TV working right now if I paid them to do it. So curious to see what that does for the long-term health of the sport. Accessibility is key. Is the internet the way to do that? I don't know. Anyways, that's where we find ourselves now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's apparently a real possibility, besides all the financial element and how it impacts the St. Louis Cardinals, which we obviously care about. A financially conservative team taking a massive hit to the books seems bad for a team that we wish would spend more. But also, from my understanding, there's a legit, though low, there's a legit possibility that the Cardinals TV could not, like the Cardinals games could not be broadcast on TV this year. And that seems insane. That seems like a knockout punch to a sport that is perceives itself to be struggling. We've talked a lot about like the rule changes and all that stuff to make the sport faster and whatever and compete with the national with like football and whatnot. And we've been saying for a while, like, I don't think that's the biggest problem that the sport faces. The biggest problem that the sport faces is accessibility. And this is not going to help that, although it may be a rocky road towards a bigger picture solve, which is the hopefully MLB being able to drop the blackout restrictions and just say, hey, just pay whatever, $250, like they can increase the price, whatever, to our subscription service. And there you go. You get everything you want. But seems like it's probably not the path to that solution that anybody was hoping for. And also, sidebar, stock buybacks are bullshit. And if there's any like legislation that needs to come from all of this, it's like that sort of stuff. But I don't want to get too much on my high horse here. Daniel, what are you thinking?
Well, I don't know. I hadn't necessarily heard anything about them not showing games this year. Excuse me. But I think the biggest thing is I don't see this changing anything for this season, mainly because Bally Sports has all the infrastructure, right? I mean, the Cardinals, even if they could take the rights back, which still seems to be kind of a possibility at some point in time, but even if they could, they don't have the way to get the games out there. So I think everybody kind of plays nice for a while and this year. But I mean, there are more talk about getting rid of blackouts than I've ever seen from people that are in baseball, right? I mean, and you got to figure baseball would really like to have that option to just have people subscribe to their stuff and cut out some of the middlemen. So I don't know. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. Yeah, the Cardinals get a whole lot of money. The Cardinals own part of, I think. They did when it was Fox Sports. I think it continued over into Bally Sinclair. I'm not 100% sure.
The partnership is opaque at best, but there's definitely some finances and things going back and forth there.
It's
I mean, like Bally hired Chip Caray, but the Cardinals had a say,
right?
So that kind of stuff,
right? It's going to take something like this though for that Band-Aid to be ripped off though, because it's really hard for any individual team to be the one who makes the choice to turn down literally billions of dollars from the cable networks in order to prioritize something that's more accessible. Because it's those contracts with the cable networks that result in MLB TV's blackout rules.
Right.
And so obviously the teams would love to have subscribers to them directly, as well as some sort of TV package. But part of the multi-billion-dollar packages that these TV corporations give to teams is to say, but you can't offer this product in any other way.
Right.
And that's where the blackouts come from. So like you're looking at a piece, you're running a company and it's like, well, I can either take the $2 billion from Bally Sports, or I can take less for them for a nebulous offer to go into the MLB streaming platform. You can understand why they would prefer to just take the fat lump sum from a cable network, especially because that's how it's always been done, not recognizing that, like, yes, that is taking short-term gain for long-term cost, because people like myself, I haven't paid for cable TV in over a decade, and I have been very happily paying for a DNS routing system that allows me to pay MLB TV and get the Cardinal games and basically pirating. And I will happily do that. But also, I will happily pay whatever MLB TV, like whatever the upcharge is, once they just get rid of blackouts. I don't like paying for, this subsystem that allows me to get around their rules. But I'm not going to pay for a cable package. So there's dozens of us, Ben. There's dozens of us that would be willing to pay for this.
I think so. And I think like what you're talking, like Sinclair made this purchase pre-pandemic in a different world where it seemed to be going towards, okay, everybody's streaming everything, Netflix, or just doing it on demand or whatever. The only thing that people are still watching TV for is for live sports, which is why those were negotiated so high. And I think the Cardinals deal was somewhere around the $20 billion over 20-year range or something like that. Pandemic happens. The whole thing gets turned on its head. The economy is in the place that it's at. And we find ourselves where we find ourselves. I think the Cardinals are uniquely positioned to pull a Yes Network, WGN type deal with the size of their viewing audience. And I think the DeWitt's sizable holdings, like the DeWitts aren't the most wealthy owners in baseball, but they are savvy. They're always looking to expand their portfolio. I would not be surprised if we learned in the next, 2 years or something, that they're in partnership with the St. Louis Blues and SC City Soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know stuff. and the Battlehawks or whatever, and they are making a regional cable network that is, just ran by the DeWitts or some kind of conglomeration of wealthy St. Louis and Missourian
Yeah.
type
And
cohort.
with your monthly subscription, you get a beef and cheddar from Arby's.
That's a deal.
But
yeah, I mean, would
worth it right there.
you pay $20 a month to subscribe to Cardinals TV on a cable box, or if you could get it, on the cable box or the
In a
on the
heartbeat.
internet? Yeah. So like,
Well, I mean, that's what Sinclair was trying to do, right? They've been trying to get a streaming service so that you could watch Cardinal stuff in house or in market. They've done that with a few. I think they've done it with a couple of the hockey teams and stuff like that. Now, maybe the Blues. I'm not 100% sure. And they were been talking about this for a year or so. And I don't know how they were going to get around all the legal loopholes, and I'm not sure that they figured it out themselves. But they were going to charge about $20. You're right. If you could do that, and there's been some talk about the Cardinals and Blues beforehand creating a network. When you add in the other stuff, and then you get into, letting their arm of creating a marketing arm to some degree, making documentaries, things of that nature. It makes sense. I'm going to be very interested. I think how we watch the Cardinals now or this year and how they do it in 3 years, 5 years, especially, it's going to be significantly different.
Yeah. So it might be rocky for a little while, but death to Bally Sports.
Point this out as well. The Royals are also Bally Sports. So maybe, and I don't know exactly how they divide those lines, but there are many wealthy. The new Royals owner is like super duper wealthy. There are many wealthy people who have a motivation to sell you a product that isn't that hard. Like, it's done. Like, we have, you're talking about infrastructure. Like, I stream games legally without all these things every day during the season. Like, they can make it happen.
You're right, Ben.
It's a huge question mark.
Gotta wait. We just got to rely on these billionaires. They'll save us all. We got it. They'll figure it out for us.
That's where we're at. I know, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe Bezos will, maybe he's a baseball fan.
That's who we need. He's that piece here.
I knew you'd like that.
We got to get Bezos in the house.
Yeah.
Get his slimy reptile fingers into the process here.
I knew you would like me bringing him up. Our hero.
Okay, yeah, future president Jeff Bezos. All right. Wow. Well, I hope it gets solved and that I could just pay a normal fee and just get it straight input into my brain. Cardinals in VR. That's what I'm looking for. The new PlayStation VR is coming out in a little bit. Let me get some front row seats via VR. That's the future.
I do think they should have a thing like a VR headset, and there should be like a VR camera that's just behind home plate or something like that. I would pay so much money to have like a VR seat at the game.
I kind of was saying it jokingly, but I actually do believe that there will be that will be a reality in the future. Not anything around like next couple years, but I do think that virtual attendance to live sports is going to be a thing.
Be so cool.
I think it could be cool as long as the headsets and whatnot are good quality.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. We'll see where it goes. We want to run through some of the happenings over the league over the past week. Ben, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, we'll start off more MLB The Show talk. We were kind of making fun of the Jazz Chisholm selection. Not even making fun, just more confused by it, bewildered by it. But whatever, good for Chaz. The MLB The Show, I think they kind of felt the tepid response to that, and then they almost immediately announced that they're adding Negro League storylines to MLB The Show, which is kind of taking me from like not super interested in giving them $60 to shut up and take my money. Not everything has been announced yet, but essentially there's like some type of road to the show storyline where you can play in the Negro Leagues. You can be specific players. I know it's not the entire Negro Leagues that are being brought into the game. But like you can pitch as Satchel Paige in a video game, which is, for somebody who has been playing baseball video games for 20 years, I could not be more excited about this development.
Yeah. It's cool. I think it's super cool. I love to see the integration of the Negro Leagues into the broader like culture around baseball, including video games. Daniel, are you much of a gamer? Do you ever play video games?
Well, I mean, I started on the Atari,
Mm-hmm.
if y'all,
Mm-hmm.
and then I probably stopped on the Atari. Um,
Did they have a
Yeah,
baseball
not.
game?
yeah, it had
Yeah.
it had one of those, little square little pixel things that
Yeah.
was ran around. Um, yeah, I've got a couple of games, but nothing recent, and I don't get around to playing them. So
Yeah.
You have a
I would
life.
like to. I
Yeah.
mean, I look at the show and I'm like, wow, this it looks so great and it's cool, and I could buy it and it would sit, and I would never actually get around to it. So
Yeah. I have liked the show for quite a while. I bounced pretty hard off of last year's version. I will say if you have Game Pass, which is for all the Microsoft systems and computer and whatnot, the show is free on it, so it gives you a chance to sort of check it out. And Game Pass is very cheap, but I kind of bounced off of it last year. They really added a ton of the like modern gamification stuff of a game, where you're doing like microtransactions in your baseball video game, which kind of drove me crazy. But the Hall of or the Negro League integration stuff is really cool. And besides, like from a gameplay side, just putting those players more on a spotlight, getting it in front of an audience that I think there's a whole subset of people who like play sports games who don't necessarily actually engage with the sport as much. So it's cool to get Satchel Paige and whoever. I haven't seen the list yet of who they're including. I know it's not a huge list, but getting those people in front of another set of baseball fans, I think is fantastic. So it's cool.
Yeah. Agreed, Nathan. Another
Wow.
in other baseball news, the Angelos brothers have decided to settle their lawsuit, which means that, well, I guess we don't really know what it means. It means that the Orioles are definitely still a baseball team. They are
Good.
likely going to be sticking in Baltimore. There were kind of rumors about them getting moved out of it. The other, like the other kind of like hair in their feather. I don't know what the hell I was about to say. The other kind of issue there is that they did not re-up their lease with their ballpark. Their team makes no sense. I am wondering if they were restricted from spending money due to the lawsuit or if they just had decided that. But anyways, doesn't matter. The billionaire whiny babies who screamed at reporters 2 or 3 weeks ago have finally settled their internal dispute over billions of dollars in the ownership of the team. So good for Orioles fans. I guess bad for humanity, but hopefully the Orioles can kind of move forward. And I don't know. Baltimore deserves a good team, in my opinion.
Well, and they are a younger, exciting team right now. They have some guys that look like potentially generational players, mostly Adley, but they've got a good crew of young guys that are coming up. So hopefully they can be supported by an ownership group that actually cares about having a good product on the field, because it's hard to compete in the AL East, but they are finally. It feels like some things are coming together for them a little bit, unlike what was it, like 2013 or something when they went to the playoffs last? So almost 10 years.
J.D. Hardy was in the mix.
Yeah. Matt Wieters.
Matt Wieters, still
Yeah.
relevant.
Still relevant.
And yeah, I think I was also planning on complaining about how many good free agents there are still available, but I think we've gone a little long, so I'm going to skip my little complaint session.
Well, they must not know that we have a dumb game riding on the remaining free agents. So we really need at least, what is it, Profar,
Waka, Elvis Anderson, Danny Duffy, and
We
many
need,
other good. Like, there's a
yeah.
ton of good free agents still available right now.
This happened a few years ago too, where these guys that are like mid-range value, and it just seems like the league collectively decides to fill these spots internally instead of signing a bunch of guys that will give you probably not excess value, but at least like fill a need on your team. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
It's weird.
Okay, I'm gonna whine about a couple of names really quick. Gary Sanchez. How is Gary Sanchez not signed by some team? Tyler Naquin makes a lot of sense for a lot of teams. Michael Fulmer makes a lot of sense. Dylan Bundy, Andrew Chafin should be in a Cardinals uniform tomorrow. I don't know. I don't get it. Luke Voigt. What happened to Luke Voigt? He still hits the ball really hard.
Yeah, but would you pay Luke Voigt, the probably $10 million he wants? He put up 0.2 WAR last year and 0.3 the year before and 1.5 the year before that.
You
like
flip him for the deadline to a team that needs a DH first baseman.
For what? He's not done shit for 3 years. He's been below it. He's been basically
been a
replacement.
Look beyond the numbers, Nate. He still hits the ball very hard, still barrels it up fairly often. So,
yeah,
if you can weed through that for half a second, you would learn that.
Yeah, that 102 WRC plus last year. Like, why would you pay for a league average guy? When you probably can spend no money and have roughly that from some dude from your farm system. I'm not saying it's the right choice, but that's the sort of, economics that a lot of these guys suffer from and how these teams look at it.
Okay.
Don't you okay me?
Archie Bradley.
Yeah, that one is actually surprising. I thought he'd have bullpen guys. It's like everyone just take a shot. It's all a crapshoot anyway. Like you'd think something like that he'd be picked up faster than like a Luke Voigt.
But here we are.
Daniel's like, stop yelling. It's getting late. I just want to go to bed. I want to play my Atari baseball game. Got to play Pong against myself. One controller in the left hand, one controller in the right hand.
Not that coordinated.
All right, I'm done with league news.
All right. Well, if you listen to our episode back in September, the last time we had Daniel on, he flipped the script on us a little bit and had Ben and I compete against each other in a game, and we're gonna do it again. I think he over prepared wildly for the last episode, and we've got some of that left over for this one. If I understand correctly. So Daniel, please go ahead and walk us through what you're about to subject us to.
All right. The game is Somehow I Manage. And last time we did 6 questions. They're all about the Cardinals managing history. We did 6 questions. Nate got 3 of them correct. And by correct, I mean 2 of them at least. He picked a number and Ben said, wow, he's too high. I'm going to go for 1. And he wasn't too high.
Price is right rules, baby. It's still playing the game.
That's right. But Ben did get a point on the last one we did, getting Joe Torre as a name that a person that never won, that did not finish first as a Cardinal manager. So I still have 12 questions. I figure we're running long, so we'll do about 3 of them. Ben, since you were 1 soundly beaten and 2 got the last one right,
put it on the board.
We'll let you go first. You have number anywhere between 1 and 12. That's how many questions I have left. So pick a number and we'll go from there.
Okay. Let's do number 10.
Number 10. All right. Everyone knows that Branch Rickey was as the architect of the minor leagues, the man instrumental to bringing Jackie Robinson to the majors, etc. All these accolades are from his GM days, but he also managed the Cardinals. How many games did he win as a manager?
Oh my God.
Did you know there's a statue of Branch Rickey in front of Coors Field?
I did not.
I did not know that.
It's just like in honor of his contribution to baseball in general. Wow. It's kind of funny. Yeah. Anyways, they say meet me at the nobody knows who it is. Nobody says meet me at Mutual. They say just meet me at the statue because nobody knows who Branch Rickey is.
Meet me at Rickey.
Yeah. Okay. Man. Good question. Not even I can't even like I don't know. You said win, right? How many did he win?
Yeah. How many did he win?
I know he was managing for quite a while. I just don't know how long. Okay. I'm just going to say 2,200 games. He won 2,200 games.
Won 2,200 games. All
Damn
right.
it, you're
Nate?
laughing.
I think you're way high, Ben.
I thought he well, I won't say anything. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I thought
I
he
think you're
managed
way
forever.
No, I don't think he managed forever. It was like, I want to say it was like 7 or 8 years that he was the Cardinal manager.
Oh wait,
Because he did a lot of different things.
I'm now realizing what 2,200 wins that puts him in. Like,
yeah. That's
well, anyways, all right. I'm shock of all shocks. I'm still bad at this game.
I think you're very high.
Yeah.
So I could do $1, Bob, but I'm going to try to make I think I'm going to try to make a legit guess here. Or at least I'm still probably I'm going to aim low. I'm going to say 500 wins.
You should have done $1. 458.
Oh my God, I was so close.
Over 7 years. You were correct. 7 years.
I had so much of that accurate, and I'm still wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 2,200 to be like 800 more than La Russa had in his time in St. Louis.
Yeah.
For some reason, I had it in my head that he managed like 25 years. But
yeah, I mean, you never know with that from that time period. You know, like it feels like all those guys, like every number is inflated from that time period. You know, it's like, oh yeah, 40 complete games and 2,000 wins.
Yeah. Well, anyways.
He also did not win. You also might have to remember they were not good when he was there. He won at a 400. Let's see, his winning percentage was 486. So he was not a 500 manager.
I can't believe it was 42 wins off. I like how deep that question was too, because I thought it was like, all right, Branch Rickey, Cardinal manager. All right, he might ask like how many years he was a manager or what years was he manager, and then you're like, no, how many wins?
Yeah,
like such a specific, good question.
All right, Ben. Since held serve, which one do you want next?
God, give me one.
All right,
please.
Yeah, I think somebody's gonna get this one.
Okay.
Out of the top 10 managers in Cardinal history by win total, how many are in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Okay. Is it me first? Okay. So I don't know this to be true, but Branch Rickey has to be in the Hall of Fame. Tony La Russa's in the Hall of Fame. Joe Torre's in the Hall of Fame. Mike Matheny's not in the Hall of Fame. Mike Schilt should be. No. All right. I'm trying to think. I think
famous Padres bench coach.
Another Mike name Schilt. That I don't want to say out loud to give Nate any hints. I believe. I really think he did, but now I'm. Okay. I'm going to say 4. Final answer.
Okay. Nate?
Although anyways, yeah.
$1, Dan.
You're saying 1. Well, Ben gets it because there's 8 of the top 10.
Whoa.
8?
Tony La Russa.
Yes.
Red Schoendienst.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Whitey Herzog, Billy Southworth, Charles Comiskey, Frankie Frisch, Branch Rickey, and Joe Torre. In fact, the only 2 that aren't are Mike Matheny and Eddie Dyer.
I somehow completely forgot about Whitey Herzog while I was thinking of that, and then I didn't know some of those other people.
I guess I had 4 in my head, and for some reason went with $1. Well, now I fucked up like you did on the last one. I couldn't remember if Schoendienst was in the, in the actual Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Dummy.
Right.
I forget about Kaminsky and Frisch and all those guys too. I'm like, yeah, of course. You know, I don't know. I don't even think.
There's a lot of names you can't think about. All right, Ben. Last one.
Yeah,
we'll get to stick with you since you.
Okay, so 1 was good for me. Let's go with 2.
All right.
Was it good for you though?
I mean, I won. Shut up.
What or the fewest wins of any Cardinal manager that's officially recorded on Baseball Reference?
Are you looking for the win total?
Yeah.
Oof.
The number of wins for the fewest wins.
Oh man. I mean, I have to imagine that old Gussie Busch fired somebody like right at the end of the season or something like that. But also, like, Cardinals are pretty stalwart. I don't know. I'm sure this is something from a very, like, 50 years from before I was born. Okay. I'm going to say 7 wins. Final answer.
I love it. 7 wins. All right, I'm definitely not going 1. You've given me a wide open door here, I think, for an easy win, because it's got like, what do you mean 7 wins? There's no one's ever a full season.
What?
I didn't say it.
You dumbass. Listen to the question.
Yeah. Okay.
See what I have to work with, Daniel? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the fewest wins for a manager in a single season. Okay, I was just hearing it.
Did you not in his career?
Jeez.
Yeah, I heard it as okay. I get it. All right, 8 wins, Daniel.
If you had said 1,
I would have gotten it.
No, you still would have been high. It's 0.
0. Oh my God. Well,
Artie
trick
Latham.
Question.
Artie Latham went 0-3 in 1896.
Do you know how he got the job? Do you know the story behind that by chance?
I do not know that one. I was probably I would guess. Let me pull him up real quick. I would not be surprised if he wasn't like a player manager of some sort.
Yeah,
somebody got fired and then he just took over. Yeah, or somebody left or got too drunk and fell off the wagon.
Yeah, or it was the 1800s. They just like forgot they were on they were the manager of a baseball team and like had to go to the farm that day.
It rained.
Yeah.
So that's what I got for you.
All right.
So I have a few more. Some other time we'll get to those.
Yeah,
we'll be back on.
Okay. Yeah.
This is just exposes how little we know about anything before like 1985.
When baseball started.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Daniel, for running us through that. I guess, Ben, you beat me 1-0 this.
Hell yeah. And I mean, really, I feel like I kind of clobbered you. So yeah, that's.
I was 42 wins off of
Price is Right.
The first question. I know. Hey.
Yeah, 2,200 was a terrible guess. Anyway, close the show.
You live by Price is Right and you die by Price is Right. So, Daniel, thank you so much for being back with us. It is always a treat. We really enjoy having you, and thank you.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we will be back next week, as always, with another episode. We are so close. From actual baseball stuff. And will the show get better when actual baseball is happening? We'll find out. Come back every week. Consider supporting us via Patreon. And we will be back next week. We'll start our World Baseball Classic coverage. And until then, John Mazalek, just do one more thing. Just do like something fun. One more end of the off-season fun thing. That's all we're asking for.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Wow.
Talking about